Welcome back. Let me tell you, it's harder managing this group than it is the Victorian team on Saturday. Caroline, you've got a question on women's issues in footy.
Oh, no, look, this is a general one for the panel. I guess it's Graham and Wayne, but it's also you, Richard, and everyone is involved in footy. 52% of Essendon's members are women. I know you have a lot of a very strong women's voice up in Sydney. Richard, Greg, you're probably hoping for that. And the clubs I know now individually are addressing women's issues. 40% of the crowds, we're told, are women. You are still, I believe, doing nothing to market the game to an area where I see this huge untapped source. I mean, we've argued about the shirt front, and I think you're ignoring some very important female issues there, as Joyce said. I mean, someone like me who has a 6-year-old son, and I don't think he's going to be as tough as Joyce's son. I'm not going to let him play a game where he can be taken out like that. And I think you've got a marketing department, multi-million-dollar corporation, Wayne, with 5 or 6 people working in it. I don't see how you can justify that when you have this huge potential market, and there's another potential market in migrants, and there's another big problem we've got in schools. Sorry, it's a bit of a general question, I know, but can we stick to the women one first?
Okay, well, pleasingly, the research work that's been done in New South Wales shows that the fundamental reason why mothers are encouraging their sons and daughters to play AFL footy, they call it up there, to play AFL, is that it is, like soccer, safe. So we're getting our major growth factors in schools, through the Auskick program, through mothers like you and Joyce, encouraging your sons and daughters to play because it is perceived to be safe. And safe it is. That's the simple answer to that question.
Research doesn't show that, though. It's as high as rugby as far as injuries is concerned. And when we do get people who are saying that they don't care or take no responsibility for shirt fronts, definitely puts young mothers off taking their children along to those sort of games.
Young mothers, children, sons and daughters don't play AFL at the national competition level. My point is that throughout the country we've got major increases, and the research does show it, Joyce, major increases in participation rates for young boys and young girls, and a fundamental reason why the kids are taking up around the whole of the country is perceived to be safe.
Richard, you have something to add to that?
The issue of marketing the game at your last meeting with the AFL, and you have strong views on women's involvement.
Well, Caroline, I think, and maybe it's easier up there because we're almost starting from scratch, but I think, you know, all the words in the world count for nothing. I mean, what we've done is that we now have 2 women commissioners, and they're not there for the sake of being there, for that very reason. We've got 3, if you like, boards that basically oversee football throughout New South Wales and the ACT. All of those now have a significant representation of women. But I think probably the most interesting thing is that we now have more female development officers than male development officers. And the reason is pretty simple. 85% of primary school teachers are female. Certainly they are in New South Wales.
So what sort of message does it give to young women of the game when the AFL puts their "I'd like to see that" ads out, and the only woman promoting the game is talking about sex?
Well, I mean, we're talking, I think, it seems to me...
Well, Graham, I know you smile about this,
no,
and
it
you
seems
think it's
to me
a bit of a barrow-pushing thing, but it's pretty insulting to 13, 14-year-old young girls who are good at sport.
Caroline, it seems to me there's almost 2 issues. There's the, if you like, the specific female one. As to the marketing, my personal view, for what it's worth, is that the AFL does have to review what it's got. What is this product? What is this brand that I guess has developed over 150 years? And I think Wayne and Graham would concur with that.
Richard, would you like to see a female commissioner? Perhaps a little bit of affirmative action amongst the commissioners?
No, I don't think that's the way to approach it, frankly, Trevor. My position is I don't care who goes onto the commission, as long as that commissioner actually adds something to the sum total of knowledge. And I think close to the most ludicrous suggestion doing the rounds, and I think fortunately it's petering out here, by a very small group of people who I think are desperately trying to stay relevant in this game, is that it's got to be a Victorian football person. I mean, God, we've had 8 commissioners, and there are 3 extra people who sit in on those meetings. 10 of the 11 reside in Melbourne, and 9 of the 11, you know, are brought up here. I mean,
interesting question, an interesting statement, Richard. We've been sitting here for about an hour now, and it seems to be a Victoria New South Wales discussion. This is a national game, isn't it? Are these issues alive and well in South Australia, Western Australia, Brisbane? What sort of feedback are you guys getting that is positive or negative to the issues that are being discussed here today, or is this just symptomatic between Melbourne and Sydney?
I think the views, most of the views that Richard's espousing would be shared not only by presence or outside Victoria, most of them would be shared by views inside Victoria too, and specifically on this one, I think you'll find that the great majority of presidents in Victoria and elsewhere around the country want the very best commissioner they can, and they don't care where he or she comes from or anything else.
Rowan Connolly. Now, Rowan, you've been bursting to get onto the ground. You've got your opportunity. Bit of advice, young fella, don't drop the ball or you'll be off.
No, you fired me up, Rob. I've just burst through the run-through. Let's talk about some nuts and bolts football issues. Graham, you're the longest-serving AFL commissioner. We all agree the game is growing. The cake we love talking about, it's getting bigger. We're all getting a great slice of it. The players are getting well paid. But I think there's a lot of respected football people that have some pretty big problems with the way the actual competition itself is run. I'm one of them. We're reviewing the Final 8 at the moment. If we change to another Final 8 system, we will have had 5 different final systems in 11 years, which I don't think reflects terribly well on the credibility of how the competition's run. The draw is uneven because the clubs don't play each other twice. That's been the case for 13 years. All those things chip away just a little bit more at the credibility of the competition itself. Yet we call winning a premiership the supposed pinnacle of the game. If that's the case, why over that time hasn't the AFL paid closer attention to those issues?
Well, look, I find it very interesting when you say that the competition's not being well run, Rowan, and
No, I didn't say that, Graham. I said that there were some issues with the running of the competition, one of which is having 5 final systems in 11 years, which I don't think you would find in any other sport in the world.
Yeah. And look, I'm sure that you could multiply by 100 times the number of suggestions we've got as to how the final system ought to be run. And we go through analysis after analysis, year after year, as to how it ought to be done, whether there are flaws in the current system, whether there are ways of improving it.
But we had the Page system for 40 years, and we had the Final 5 for 18 years, and now we're having 5 in 11 years. I mean, couldn't we have taken a bit more time over the first couple and got them right?
But if you're critical, Rowan, of the way a couple of things are happening, we understand that. We don't do everything right. We're just a group of people trying pretty hard to run a national competition. And over the last 12 or 14 years, the great bulk of it's been pretty right. But 1 or 2 things that we may have mucked up on.
No, my point is, though, that they are very fundamental things to the AFL competition.
Ask David Parker.
It went from a 5 to a 6 to an 8, Rowan. I mean, they have to change the system.
Do you accept those sort of imbalances as well as
well, you've got it. I have no power or control over that. We've got a 16-team competition and all the ramifications that go with it. The AFL have engineered brilliantly a very even competition. And it's been engineered against the tide because, quite frankly, we don't play each other time. I mean, everything you can think of, not the draft or the salary cap or the fixture itself, is a fair and balanced one in any shape or form.
How frustrating is that for you as a coach?
Well, I just coach. I just get frustrated when I can't get a team that wins. I don't get frustrated. I don't have any control over that. If I spend my days worrying about that sort of thing, I don't get the normal work done.
Importantly, David, hasn't made luck too big a factor in determining the premiership?
I think in most instances, it's a national program, isn't it? I'm going to say with the exception of the last couple of years, but that would be a very silly thing to say, wouldn't it?
We do go to Adelaide.
But in most instances, the best team wins, but it's the best team standing up at the finish. And I think the injury factor at that level is one that has far too great a significance over the end result. To me, we can't shorten the season. There's no way knowing that the Commission's going to do that because it relies on the income. But we've got to shorten the length of the game, and we might have to just increase the. I'm not very good at interchange, so I'm not for increasing it too much at all. But we might have to increase it just a little bit better, a little bit more, so that we can share the workload over less time amongst more people. I think that's a pretty sensible way to go.
Thanks,
so whilst you've got a 16-team competition.
You're honestly saying that it's a fair competition. Would you rather play the number 1, the Premiers, once a year and the bottom team twice? And keep your job by doing so?
We've been pretty lucky. They've given us 2 chances not to go to Sydney in the last 2 years. We haven't won there for 10 years. That's the first thing I do is look at the fixture and see that we're playing Sydney.
It's done in a 4-year cycle. This time last year, people may like to have played the Brisbane Lions twice. I wonder how many of them want to play the Brisbane Lions twice this year.
If you were running any competition, I would have thought in any sort of sport in the back blocks of Wollongong, each team plays each other twice.
I think it's pretty obvious that if every team played every other one twice, that would be the fairest competition. We'd play 30 rounds and maybe get rid of the Ansett Cup and whatever, but or play them all once. And the AFL wouldn't be, in principle, against playing everyone once or twice. If we play them once, we have to reduce the player payments and everything else that's associated with the game.
David,
For 50 years, sorry, you had 18 home and away games and 12 teams. I mean, can I just make a comment as someone who doesn't live in Melbourne? I don't think you people know how good the thing is that you've got. You go and talk around to your counterparts in Brisbane or in Sydney and they marvel at how the AFL has reinvented itself. It's the only one of the sports that's actually been able to develop a true national competition.
I mean, with all due respect though, Richard, I don't think that negates what I'm saying at all. I mean, I'm not talking about Victoria and national competition. I'm talking about a final system that's good enough for 40 years and another one's good enough for 18 years, and then ones that are so dodgy you've got to change them every 2 years.
But you've got people arguing about playing everyone twice. You didn't have that under the VFL for 50 years or so.
David, I've got a question to David, who's coached over 400 games, coached for 20 years. A young player at 15 or 16 coming into league football now, what skills does he need that he didn't need 20 years ago? Is it harder for a kid to play at the top level now than it was 20 years ago?
I've got no doubt that every aspect of footy, whether you're administrating the game, whether you're coaching it, whether you're a physical conditioner, whether you're a journalist writing about it and a player playing it, it is significantly more difficult now to deal with the demands, if you like, which the game is making on the individual. In all cases, there's a higher expectation in every aspect of the player's preparation to play. I mean, we're asking these guys, even at 16 or 17, to run a half marathon and have a game of footy at the same time. No game in the world demands that of their athletes. That's why it is such an exciting game, when you really know what goes into it, and half the people I think who watch, and maybe half that write about it too, just don't understand and don't have any real empathy with the kid that's got to produce for 30-odd weeks an athletic performance of that calibre. And I just am amazed that, and I think the standard might have dropped off a little. I think the degree of difficulty spread over 16 teams now has made it very, very difficult for us to keep the standard at the level that we might want. It is an athletic contest where you need to play footy too. And one of the sad things is that the natural-born footballer who's got all those credentials that would have got him a game in every team in my vintage, unfortunately now doesn't guarantee him a game. So I think it's a hell of a lot harder.
Just so I could, there's some off-field demands that have changed as well, haven't they? In that 20-year period.
Well, I'm having the greatest difficulty now with people who are trying to pursue other things in their life. When the research is pretty clear that the player or the athlete in any pursuit who is able to balance their life somewhat, not hugely into some other area, but is allowed to take their head out of their, in our case, footy, and put into something else, will play just as well as the full-time pro who has nothing else in their life, and in fact is likely to stay longer, the research is telling us that, and not have as many dips and as deeper dips as the guy, in our case, who's playing football, and that's the only single focus they have in their life. So to me, I have a great deal of difficulty trying to get these balances now when we're working so hard to stay level ground with everybody else who's running a half marathon and having a game of footy each weekend. It's pretty tough stuff.
Yeah. Wayne, we've only got a couple of minutes for the next break, but TV rights, they're coming up, and are you negotiating yet?
No, we're not negotiating.
No, but you will shortly, won't you? You'll set that in train. How significant will these be, given that there is now talk of splitting rights? Channel 7, Channel 9 will bid furiously for them. What can we expect from the new TV deal?
Well, firstly, I agree, Patrick, that in terms of the really significant issues to be faced in the next 6 months or 12 months, television and the renegotiation...
Well, it already will impact on the salary cap.
Yes, it will.
Next year, because you're going to bring that money forward, aren't you?
That's correct.
Do you have a figure for that yet?
Yes, we have, and that will be made public by the end of this week. But the answer to your question is that the negotiation for our television rights is crucially important for the development of this game, for the payment of the players, for the improvement in facilities for our patrons. So,
will it be a bonanza for you?
Don't know, because we'll just work as hard as we possibly can to get the best result we can. It's not all about dollars. Again, it's about who can partner us best as we take the game forward. So it's not just about dollars at all.
Has Channel 7 said formally to you that we won't deal in TV rights if you want to split them?
Look, I don't think this is the forum for us to be talking about commercial discussions.
Well, that's a broad question. I mean, have they...
Well, no, I'm not prepared to answer that question. Simply, I would say that dealing exclusively with Channel 7 or 9 or a myriad of other people is a possibility. Splitting the rights either between home and away and finals, Anzac Cup and finals, taking a grand final.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Friday night. They're all possibilities and they'll all be in the mix as we come to negotiate these issues in the next 12 months.
Talking about bonanzas, Greg, there was stories in both the Melbourne, or two of the Melbourne morning papers recently about Wayne Carey becoming the first player who will, in the term of his next contract, earn $1 million a year. Is that going to stand up?
Well, the only story is, first of all, Mike, I mean, $1 million a year is a big figure. That's probably all inclusive of the other parts of his, outside of football. But look, Wayne will earn a significant contract as the #1 player in the competition that you've voted for the last 4 years.
Does that include money from Channel 7?
No, the money we're talking about is money you can earn by promotion development through our club and the use of his image through our club.
How much
Plus he receives money outside of that from other organisations like Nike and Channel 7.
How much longer will he play for, given his chronic groin problems and things?
His chronic groin problems. No, it was his first. It's his first soft tissue injury he's ever had, Michael. And look, I think he'll play for, like Steve Kernahan did, 6 or 7 years.
David, meanwhile back at the Docklands, it's round 22, 2005.
I hope I get a seat.
Yeah, Carlton and Essendon separated by percentage. It's pouring with rain in Melbourne. Essendon are playing over at the Docklands and Carlton are playing at Optus Oval. They closed the roof at Docklands. Essendon kicked 21 goals. Carlton kicked 9 and win over at Optus.
And failed to make the finals.
And failed to make the finals. What's your view about that?
See, I'll be pretty dirty on that, I reckon.
No, seriously,
if I'm still around in that respect, I won't be, but if I was, I think I'd be pretty unhappy about that.
It is a possibility that will happen, though, isn't it?
I would think, in my understanding, that could happen.
Wayne, is there a policy on the roof?
No, there's no policy on the roof at all, except I would have loved to have had it last Saturday when we had the State of Origin game. But Trevor, if just maybe Carlton would have been playing at Subiaco on that day when it was 34 degrees and it hadn't rained for 2.5 years.
And the heat would have got them.
And the heat would have got them. So, I mean, we are in a national competition. We'll have different climates. It rains at Waverley, it doesn't rain at Geelong. You live with all of those things.
Still going to be hard to accept, though, isn't it?
Time to go for a break, Trevor. The debate will continue after the break. I hope you're enjoying it at home as we are here.